The man with the red candy bowl. It was Halloween night in 1994 in a small suburban neighborhood just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. The street was lit with the soft orange glow of jack-o'-lanterns, and the air was crisp with the scent of fallen leaves. 10-year-old Tommy and his best friend, Jake, were making their rounds, bags heavy with candy. The boys had one last house to visit before calling it a night. At the end of the cul-de-sac stood a house no one in the neighborhood seemed to know much about. Its shutters were closed tight, and the yard was overgrown, but on that night, the porch light was on, and there was a bowl of candy sitting on a small table in front of the door. The sign above it read, "Take one." As Tommy and Jake approached the house, they noticed a man sitting in the shadows of the porch. He was dressed in a black coat, his face partially hidden by a wide-brimmed hat. In his hand, he clutched the red bowl of candy. The boys hesitated, but the man said in a raspy voice, "Go on, boys. Help yourselves." Feeling uneasy, but determined to score more candy, Tommy reached for a piece. The man grabbed his wrist, cold fingers tightening around his arm. Tommy yelped in pain as the man pulled him closer, whispering, "Don't you know what happens to boys who don't follow the rules?" Jake, frozen in fear, watched as the man grinned, revealing rotten teeth. He shoved Tommy's arm away, laughing as the boys ran down the driveway. They didn't stop until they were out of sight. When they returned home, Tommy's mom noticed his wrist was red and swollen, like he had been burned. The next morning, the boys told their parents about the man, but when they returned to the house, it was completely dark. No candy bowl, no sign of anyone ever living there. When they asked the neighbors, no one remembered anyone ever moving in. Tommy's wrist never fully healed. To this day, there's a faint hand-shaped scar, as if the grip of that strange man never let go. He still dreams about that porch, but in the dreams, he never makes it out. The Phantom Mask. In 2011, Emma, a 12-year-old girl from Massachusetts, was trick-or-treating with her younger brother, Timmy. They had only moved to the town a few months earlier, so Halloween felt like an exciting opportunity to meet some neighbors. The streets were packed with kids in costumes, and for the first hour, everything was perfect. As they made their way down a quieter side street, they approached a house with dim lights. Standing on the porch was a figure dressed in a long, tattered cloak, wearing a featureless white mask. It didn't seem odd at first. It was Halloween, after all, but as they approached, the figure didn't move or speak. Emma hesitated, but eventually said, "Trick or treat." The figure remained silent, motionless. Timmy, a little braver, stepped forward and reached out for a piece of candy from the bucket at the figure's feet. As soon as Timmy touched the candy, the figure grabbed his wrist and yanked him toward the door. Timmy screamed, dropping his candy bag. Emma lunged forward, pulling him back with all her strength. The figure let go, but they both stumbled backward, terrified. Without saying a word, the masked figure tilted its head and pointed directly at Emma, then slowly closed the door, leaving them standing in stunned silence. The lights inside the house flickered off, and everything went dark. The siblings ran home, breathless, to tell their parents. When Emma's father went to check the house the next morning, it was abandoned. The police found no one there, and according to the neighbors, the house had been vacant for months. No one should have been living there, let alone giving out candy. To this day, Emma can still see the featureless mask in her nightmares. She never trick-or-treated again. The candy that wasn't there. In 2003, Alex and his group of friends were hitting every house in their neighborhood. They were teenagers, 15 or 16 years old, and this was probably their last year trick-or-treating. The night was going well until they reached a house they'd never noticed before. It wasn't run down, but it felt wrong. The windows were dark, but the porch was lit, and a single bowl of candy sat by the door. No one was outside, and the door was shut tight, but the sign on the bowl said, "Take as much as you want." Alex's friend, Matt, was the first to laugh and grab a fistful of candy. "No one's watching," he said, stuffing his pockets. Alex and the others followed suit, emptying the bowl in seconds. As soon as they turned to leave, they heard the door creak open. A voice, deep and angry, growled, "Thieves!" They turned back, but no one was there. Just the empty doorway. Alex's stomach dropped, and they sprinted away, laughing nervously. But as they reached the next block, something strange happened. Matt stopped suddenly, clutching his chest. I can't breathe," he gasped. The others thought he was joking until Matt collapsed. They called for help, but by the time the paramedics arrived, Matt was unconscious. He spent 2 days in the hospital, and the doctors couldn't figure out what had caused the sudden attack. They chalked it up to stress or exhaustion, but Alex knew better. Later that night, when Alex went through his candy haul, he noticed something odd. The candy from that house was gone. He remembered stuffing his pockets, but there was no trace of it. It was like it had never existed. A week later, Alex heard from another kid who'd taken candy from that house. They had collapsed too, this time in their sleep. Alex never went back to that street, and the house was torn down the following year. No one knows who lived there, or if anyone did at all.